I saw that a friend of mine wasn't going live, so I thought I'd come on a bit earlier than normal and talk about some beginner card making stuff. And today I mostly wanted to chat about ink because in the box that we were playing with last time around, we got this cute little stamp set. And I said, well, we can't, probably won't use that today, but I wanted to just sort of touch on ink because when people get into card making, it's probably one of the first things they're excited to play around with, in addition to like paper and obviously. So we still have the same pattern paper. I'm not sure exactly where the ephemera went. I lost it somewhere on my desk, which I'm sure will become obvious, but I've got some other Christmas stuff I may play with today if I can't find it. Um, I feel like that's sort of the crafter's dilemma. It's like you start 15 projects and then you get a little off track. So I wanted to shout out my friend Lynn, who basically was able to do a really thorough video, and I believe I linked it in the description box, all about differing inks and why you would use them. But I'm going to give you sort of a very beginner friendly sort of look at it. So it kind of depends what on you and how you want to use your ink. So generally, I would say start with a black ink, and that way you're not going to be spending a ton of money up front. Um, and see if you like it. And there are a couple different ways that you can actually use these clear stamps that I'll get into in a second. And really, what you need to decide initially is if you're planning to color over any of your stamped images. And really, it only color over them using a wet medium of some sort, which is probably going to be markers or it could be paint, but because you can certainly watercolor over stamped images. But basically, you need to decide if you need your image to be waterproof or alcohol proof, or which is also sometimes called solvent proof. So typically, if you're going to want to use alcohol markers, which I do a ton of, you're going to want a dye-based ink. I very much like the Memento Tuxedo Black. It's sort of my go-to. There's a good secondary option, which I may have on my desk or not. Let me just grab this. It is next to my desk. Um, is the Ink on Threes ink. I have one that's open, but this is a new one. Their blackout ink is both water and alcohol safe. So it's a good, if you don't know what you're going to do, I like the Ink on 3. I find the Memento is gives you a little clearer image up front. And if you need something that's waterproof, I've been a big fan of StazOn, which let me see where if I can find that. I'm pretty sure I had a pad of it here. Oh, it's right here in front of me. This StazOn is a solvent-based ink that basically will dry permanent and waterproof. As you see, this one's still closed. I don't use it that much. Basically, I use the solvent inks exclusively to stamp on acetate or other like non-porous surfaces. That's going to be harder with a dye ink. But I don't know. When I started out, I basically used this or the Catherine Pooler Midnight, and these are both dye-based inks with the dye suspended in water, essentially. So I use those quite a bit, and I have used the Blackout a lot. I do like both of them quite a bit. I think I've been liking the Memento on the cardstock I use for alcohol ink coloring. But anyway, none of those things are probably going to be an issue for you if you're just getting started. So you probably are going to be looking for some kind of a dye-based ink because that's going to give you a really clear impression. And stamping is not something that's super easy to do. It does require some practice. So just FYI, like if you stamp the first couple times and it looks kind of messy, that happens to me too. And I can give you some suggestions on how you might be able to address that. Anyway, so As you notice, these are clear, and if I pull the back off of this, they're they're wiggly. So like I couldn't just hold this and stamp with this, so I need to put this on something. Um, you'll notice there's sort of a flat side to these, and then the ridge side that has all the side, which would be like the side that you would ink. Um, so there are two ways you could kind of go about this, I would say. One I use all the time, and one I use almost never, which is why I had to actually go and buy one of these guys. Um, so one way you can do this that I don't use all the time really is a clear stamp block, or really it doesn't need to be anything that is sort of clear acrylic will work. The ones made for stamping have lines on them, so it's a lot easier to see what you're doing. And basically, what you do is you take your stamp and just stick them on there, and then depending on how you wanted to use this, I'll stick them on here more straight, and then you can basically see from the other side where your stamp's going to show up. So if I just grab a little bit of this, and the other thing that's worth noting, because these are new stamps, is when they're brand new, I'll just stamp on this, and that stamped pretty well. When they're brand new, you may find they don't stamp super well initially. When they're manufactured in the factory, there's a coating actually put on these clear stamps that is a little bit ink resistant. So you can either use your finger to get them off, or just stamp a couple extra times. So that's one way to approach these. This also is nice because I'll say nice and not so nice in that, like, it's really nice when you have a finished card. You can just go and stamp a sentiment or something in one spot if you want to. If not, that's fine too. And the other way, which I use all the time, is a stamp positioning tool. Essentially, this door serves like the block, and then you just put your paper down here, and there's a magnet to hold it in place. And the benefit to this thing is that you can stamp in the same exact place multiple times. Mine is very well used, I believe, is the word people are using these days. But essentially, it will allow you to just repeat the stamp, so you can get much more professional stamp looking stamps right away. Um, this guy actually stamped quite nicely, but if he didn't, um, that could be, that could kind of mess up your card. And really, the other suggestion that I'll make is if you can stamp first and then do a lot of your embellishments, that's probably going to help you out quite a bit. Just because then you're going to have a little bit less to deal with. So I was thinking we could use some of these gingerbread guys and a little colored pencil just to sort of do a fun little card. I decided to pull the Kendra's Card Challenge sketches out again to see if there's one that I like, and the one that came to mind was this guy. Um, and I'm probably not going to do like a frilly decorative thing here, but essentially we can just do a pattern paper back. And the reason this is be really good when you're starting stamping is this little piece of cardstock. Like you can do that first, and then not run into potential issues where um, you can get all your stamping out of the way. We can also do this either horizontally or vertically, depending. I think I might want to like flip the card this direction, because then I'd be able to have a couple more snow people. So, looking at my sketches, I see that that piece is 2¼ by 3½. So I am going to cut a piece of paper that size just to get started. I will probably, I may use some of our scraps from last time, or I definitely want to use this gingerbread paper, I think. Um, Although once we figure out what our orientation of the card will be, that'll be a little bit easier, because we'll probably want it. Like a lot of these are directional patterns, meaning there's a top to them. not a lot of them, but the gingerbread one is for sure. So I probably want to figure that out. I probably want to get my focal piece done, which is that little square, and then work on the other stuff. I have some of my coloring cardstock handy because I was cutting other things. So I think I will just trim that down. And what did I had said 3.5 by 2.25. So I will cut at 2.25, and then I will cut at 3.5. And then this piece we can use for our stamping. I think this will work quite nicely. I will actually use the stamping platform to stamp on, but I think I will use the block just so you guys sort of get the idea of how that will work. And hopefully we will. And like these are like $3, and the stamp platforms are a little more spendy. So I guess I would say that's just worth knowing. Where I feel like the stamp platforms would be good to get into once you know stamping is the thing you definitely want to do. They generally run. I mean, I've seen that there are a number of different models on the market, but I think they generally run in sort of the $30 to $50 price range. So you know, you may or may not want to do that initially. The other benefit to both of these tools is you can stamp sort of off. So if you want, so say we want to use the top for a sentiment, like I can only stamp the top here, and I think I'll just keep using this guy and just sort of do three, I think, and hope that we will not have too much going on. And this guy, I think I'll put a little off to the side. I want his head to still be on, but as you see, we're stamping down here, but we don't need to use any of that. So that looks good. Typically, I like to use alcohol-free baby wipes because they'll pull up this dye ink really quickly. And what I want to figure out is what do we want? You can also use dedicated stamp cleaners. I really like the Ink Off by Ink on 3, but pretty much anything you can find locally is probably just fine. They all pretty much work the same way. So let's see. You are magical. I like that one. Hope your Christmas is too. I think we'll do that. And I will say one thing I still am quite accident prone on is putting the sentiments on cards backwards. So what I like to do is sort of hopefully this will fit, and just you can kind of figure out where you might want to put this, and then I will just pick it up. Sentiments are also a little prone to going on crooked, so um, again, the more you can sort of split up your stamping into components when you're new, the more you can potentially waste less stuff while you're I don't know, while you're just sort of getting the hang of it. And this is kind of what can happen because I can't go back in with this easily. What you can do, and we'll do this on the other side because we have two sides and you can use both. Some of this is like you can look through to make sure that the stamp looks like it's inked. And what you want to do is kind of go down and you can sort of rock a little bit. And then this one came out fine. We'll just go back in. I guess that's another tip that I use a lot and did when I was new as well is like there are two sides to all this to paper. So like if you haven't glued it down, you do have the ability to just sort of go back in. I'm going back in with our little guy. And I think I'll just do 2, and I've angled them slightly so they both are kind of focusing at the sentiment. Do I like that? No, I don't know. I'm not sure if I want a third one. I think I'll leave this as is for now. Anyway, I do encourage you to go and check out my friend Lynn's videos. She also runs the Crafty Fun with LV Handcrafted Facebook group, which I will drop in the stream here. I think that should work. And if it doesn't, check the description. It's probably there as well. Ah, there we go. Sometimes it takes a minute. Anyway, so what would I do with this next? Well, let's assuming that we're just working with the materials at hand. One thing I like to do, and you may have seen this in the mystery craft along this weekend, is I like to sort of ink blend around the edge to sort of make the focus more in the center of this kind of a piece. But I am just going to, let's see, I will grab a silver. That's a very dark brown. I would like a lighter brown. Figure out which brown this is. Tuscan red does not. It's sort of that's almost a terracotta, but it's probably not as brown as I would like. Ah, here we are. Here it is, and I think I'm going to do the. Well, a red would like a true red would be nice to do sort of the gumdrop buttons and those sorts of things. Or a green. We could. I think I have a green right here, so maybe I will do the buttons in green, and then do the gingerbread man in sort of a terracotta color. I think I will. We could leave the ice. I may just leave the icing as is. Not sure if I want a green eye. I will grab this darker brown. That's not the darker brown. There we go. I'll grab the darker brown, I think, for the eyes. The other thing I really like uh, using the eyes on eyes is there's a um, I forget what these things are actually called. There's a sort of a glossy pen you can use. The glaze pens. That's what this guy is. But they work really nice for eyes if you want them to be a little bit more shiny. Then I think we can just leave the. I think this is the right color. Yeah, color sort of the cookie part lightly. And I think I'll leave the hands sort of. Well, I'll probably color them with this as well. And I'm just being a little. I'm not really applying much pressure. I'm just going back and forth here essentially. That works pretty well. And I'm avoiding sort of the frosting lines because I'll just leave them the same white as the cardstock. Now, if we had wanted to color with a water-based marker, which typically you see a lot of, like some of the, like the Crayola markers, for example, are very much that. we probably would have used a waterproof ink. Although I don't know, when I was getting started. The other thing you can do is if you do color over these, you can always go back in with a white gel pen too to really make them pop. I may use my silver and see how that looks on one of these guys. I kind of like that actually. But I feel like when I was starting card making, like I really didn't need a ton of stuff. I definitely bought more than I needed off of the gate. And I mean, I think this looks super cute. So, I mean, I think we'll be able to turn this into a fun little card. The other thing you can do that I am a big fan of are these are corner rounders and they come in a bunch of different styles. This one is like $5 on Amazon. So, that's the one reason I liked it so much. And I'm just going to basically, there are 3 different punches depending on how rounded you want the corners. But I'll use the smallest one, I think. I think I just want not a lot of rounding, just to get the corner off since the gingerbread are kind of round. I feel like there we go. The slightly rounded corner looks a little bit cuter. Personal taste. Um, Definitely not something you need, but there are a lot of things that fall into the not something you need, but if you like the style of them, are a good option. So that's really all the stamping we have to do. So all we really need to do is cut 5 strips that are 1 by 4 and then get our card together. And I have some card bases to the side. So I think I will see if I have this candy cane pattern I like. So I think I'll cut this to 4 inches. This is mostly non-directional. So I'll cut it to 4 inches on this side. And then I'm going to cut, you need 5 strips for this. I'm just going to cut 2 of the candy cane, 2 of the gingerbread, and then figure out where we want to go from there. So that's 1 and 2. We could actually get a third one out. Maybe I'll just do candy canes and gingerbread man. Um, Whenever I need to do something like where this is a very fine cut, I'll definitely want to use my trimmer in the direction so that the paper is braced towards the edge. If you do it in the other way, like the paper's likely to move around, and that can be make things a little less fun for everybody. And here is my paper pad. And I may put up a poll on this, guys, but I'm very curious if you have a preference if we keep doing Christmas stuff or if you want to move on to other things, since Christmas in July is more or less concluding, and you may be a fan of more Christmas or not. And I'm very curious about what we do as a continuation of this series. I feel like the benefit of keeping with Christmas is then we're really in this world of, hey, you only bought one kit. But the benefit of doing something else is I feel like we're going to definitely come back and do more Christmas before it's actually Christmas. So I don't know. I'm a little torn. And I'm going to grab a card base. This came out of the kit as well. This is an A2, which is 5.5 by 4 1/4. And I'm just going to sort of fit this together. The way this design works, you basically have some extra space to play with. Now, what you can do is you can butt all the pattern paper up to each other and have white space on the sides. I actually tend to like this if you space them at the white space out because you kind of wind up with like little pinstripes. So I think I will do that. And then the way this goes together, like this would be on the top. And I think that's cute. And So that is what we're going to do. And you could, let's see, we could use tape or glue. I would generally opt to glue, except I'm not seeing where exactly at the end of my other live I put my glue bottle. So we may be doing something else in a moment if I don't see it quickly. That is so strange because it's almost always right in the corner. Okay, let's just, I guess we'll just put this together with tape. And I will definitely need to excavate my desk and figure out where all the things are that I couldn't find. I don't know. I feel like it's such a crafting problem. It's sort of like everything's great except I can't find stuff on my desk. So, with you want to be careful with the tape because once it's down, it's definitely down. This card is pretty forgiving in that there's, I don't know, like as long the non-directional paper will give you a lot of freedom to accidentally put things on in the wrong orientation, um, but I don't know. Tape guns also, you don't need to. This is a refillable one from Scotch, but they make little tape runners that work just as well. And I'm trying to see if I don't think I have one currently on my desk, but know that they are the same thing, just in a larger form factor, and they can all be refilled, so it doesn't necessarily matter which one you start with. And I'm just going to make sure these are relatively even. As I've done more card challenges, I've liked the larger ones because you're not refilling them all the time. Sort of the small ones are very convenient to get into small spaces, but are also, uh, you're likely to just refill them a lot more frequently. Going to get that guy down. Oh, and some embellishments landed, so we can definitely use those. I suspect a crafty paw is investigating. That's usually why things tend to just randomly fall down. If you were concerned with getting this completely even, obviously I'm not, but you can sort of make things intentionally wonky. You can get them a little bit off center so that like that becomes more of a like an intentional element as opposed to like something you were trying and it didn't really work out. But anyway, for next time, I will see if I can find one of those little tape runners just so you have a sense of what they look like. So that is, and the real benefit to this tape is like this is dry, we're done. There's nothing to wait for. Where a lot of stuff is, a lot of other times it's a little bit less of that. And then we're going to cover up our mistakes on this stamping by gluing it down, and no one will ever know unless they are watching your live streams that you did an oopsie. And next time I'll show you the stamping platform in a little bit more detail if you're interested in seeing that, just to sort of get a sense. And I'm just going to get that on here. And then I always like to do a little cluster, either like three in a row, or I have been liking sort of the cluster look where you put them like here and then maybe use a little one just for a little bling, a little something extra, a little extra icing on your card. So that is our beginner friendly stamp card. We only used one ink and a $3 block from Hobby Lobby. And, you know, I think this is a great place to start. I definitely encourage folks to buy less stuff initially. Um, Because if you buy a little bit of it and try it out, you can kind of better understand where you might want to invest your money. Like, are you an ink person? Well, there's a lot of ink out there that you might be able to use in your crafting. Are you more of a stamper? Are you more of someone who likes to just sort of stamp images and color them out? I mean, there's plenty of room for everyone, but at least my tendency when I got started initially was just to buy all the things. And I think that being a little more judicious up front will definitely make your crafting life a lot more fun in the long term. So, anyway, anyone who's watching this live or on the replay, thanks for checking this out. I'll be back in what's going to be the normals time for these lives in the future, which is really 6 o'clock Central on Sundays. And anyone who's around tomorrow evening at 6 p.m., jump on. I will be kicking off the August challenge and all of that, and show you some of the materials that I'm planning to use. Although, if you've seen unboxings lately, you may have seen some of them already. So it'll probably be a little bit of that, and then yeah, then we will go from there. So thanks for checking this out, and hope everybody has a fantastic rest of your Sunday.